Episode 2, Solstice Recovery Podcast. We are here at our current Solstice house in Culver City,
California, where our beautiful home resides. Today, we're going to be talking with one of our residents who's our longest term resident. His name's Reza. He's been with us for about 90 days so far, almost 120 days, coming up on 120 days with us. And he's going to tell us a little bit about the house.
Yeah, we're super excited to hear a little bit about Reza's story. He's got a lot of experience in recovery.
Yeah.
I believe he had 5 years at one point, a lot of time, but he's got a lot of really good insight. Spiritual man, godly man. Woke up this morning with him in the house. We went outside. We said some prayers while we were drinking our coffee. Excited to hear Reza's story. I think he's got a unique perspective and some experiences as well that are super informative of this process.
Oh yeah, 100%. And if there's somebody that's walking the walk and talking the talk, it's Reza.
100%.
And that's I'm seeing the changes in his life. So I'm really excited to talk to him today and, hear what he has to say and hear a little bit about his story and dive in there.
100%. So without further ado, we have Reza.
How's it going?
Welcome on the pod, man.
Thank you.
So you've gotten to see us kind of set this up. You've gotten to actually kind of see us from the beginning, go through a little. We're still going through growing pains, but set up the house. You've been here pretty much from the beginning. See how we're changing things. You've been really flexible with the changes and some of the things that we've been implementing here. And working with us and understanding that we're learning just as much as you're learning. And we're really happy with that you've been here as our quote unquote ride or die. But you've got about almost 120 days sober now?
I got a little over 120 days.
Oh, a little over 120 days. Okay, fantastic. That's wonderful, man. That's really amazing. Now you came in here. Tell us about how you came into Solstice.
Okay, so I've pretty much been trying this since February 2022.
Okay.
And I've had a string of relapses. I really struggled this time around.
Yeah.
Like before I had 5 years, that was the most amount of time I've had. And for some reason, this go at sobriety was really difficult. My mental health declined tremendously. I had a really bad psychosis. And, for a while I was hopping through sober living to detox, to residential, back to sober living, and I just couldn't get it. And I believe I found out about you guys through my friend Anthony, who was a client at the time here at Solstice Recovery. And I was on another run. I was in a hotel and I talked to Anthony and he gave me you and Brian's information. And I was in contact with both of you guys. And I was blessed to have Brian come pick me up from the hotel I was in. And he took me to Miracles Detox. And after my time was done there, he picked me up immediately, and I started my journey in Solstice.
Wonderful. Wow. So tell me a little bit about what it was like to, and I know recovery is not always linear, but what was it like to have 5 years of sobriety? That's pretty long-term sobriety. I mean, when Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob wrote the big book, I believe he only had 5 years of recovery. So tell me what it was like when you had 5 years of recovery. What was the cognitive thinking that you went through? What led up to making that first choice of picking up that drink after 5 years of being in this program?
Yeah, it's a good question. So when I had 5 years, I thoroughly worked the steps, with a sponsor. I had a lot going for me. I remember going back to school. I finished my undergrad degree in psychology at CSUN. I did some of my master's program at USC. I got accepted to USC. And then somehow I got into the sneaker business through a friend in recovery. And
so life was going pretty well for you.
Life was going great.
Yeah.
I was making money I've never seen before.
Wow.
And, it was a slow process because I was still consistently going to a lot of meetings. I still was in the fellowship. I had a lot of friends in recovery. But, I believe the job I had, the money I was making, it brought my ego back because I was, I remember there was a year I made more money than my parents even that year after taxes. And I couldn't believe how much money I was making.
So you're saying that money started to become your higher power. You started to put more value into money and the monetary and material things than you did into your spirituality.
Yeah. I mean, it was money, it was success. It was all in the same spectrum, and I felt like I was the shit.
Yeah.
Like I got a second chance at life at the time, and things were just going fucking great. But, at the time also, I had a different sponsor and I wasn't calling him that often. So I was kind of disconnected from, sponsorship, which I feel like was really important. And at that time, I didn't have any sponsees either, and I remember the sponsees I had before, they would always relapse. And I feel like that was one thing that was kind of like neglected in my program. Like I always wanted to have success with a sponsee. And I was unlucky not to have that success. Yeah. And towards the end, I wasn't sponsoring people, and I probably was disconnected from helping others. And I was more consumed about myself.
Yeah. 100%. And not everybody that you help is going to be successful in this program. And we can't allow our sobriety to be contingent upon other people's successes. I can't tell you, I've had countless sponsees who, and all of my friends have, who just like, they'll work with us for a few weeks and they'll be really gung-ho about it. And then I don't ever hear about them again, That's just how it works, or like, they get to a certain point in the steps, and sometimes the emotional labor of recovery and changing yourself is too hard, and it's too hard to remain accountable to somebody else. So they just stop calling you, they ghost you, or they want to work with somebody else. So they, addicts and alcoholics are very much in the mindset, when we get uncomfortable, we don't want to sit in it. We want to change. We want to move, pull a geographical, go somewhere else, hang out with a new crew, try something else, get a new job. It's always the outside thing, outside stimulus that's making us uncomfortable. But remember that discomfort is coming from within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so
you make a really good point. Like, it's not about the sponsees, but I just feel like in general, I wasn't helping others.
Yeah.
And that could be just having a conversation with someone at the meeting that's a newcomer, someone that's struggling, kind of thinking about someone besides myself.
Yeah.
And I feel like that also plays a part with my relationship with my higher power, God. It wasn't there as it once was. Because they all kind of tie in together. 100%. And I was just feeding myself, and I just wanted to make a lot of money, get a lot of girls. It was just all about me again.
Yeah. 100%. It becomes the Reza show.
Yeah.
Everything's about Reza. How can we make Reza feel the best?
Yeah.
How can we get him the most pussy? How can we get him the most money? How can we get him the most cars? Whatever.
And I was living it up. I was living it up.
You're living it up. But we have to be, when we get success, we have to be humble about it. Show humility. Humility is such a big part of spiritual growth, and remembering that you're no better than anybody else. I was with a client yesterday, and we were standing in line. I was standing in line with him to go get his food stamps I forget what it's called, but we went to go get his food stamps, and everybody in line is poor, is homeless, struggling. They're on the down and out. Most people were, even using drugs right there in line. I noticed when I was standing in line, I was battling my ego to be like, I'm so much better than this. Why am I here? This is gross. To being like, no, these people are struggling. I was once there. I need to practice humility and not just write these people off. Not just be like, oh, these people are just using the system to, get free stuff. And it's really hard. It's really hard for that mental battle to, come out with humility on top instead of your ego on top, because your ego is a protection layer. It wants to protect you. It wants to say, you're the best. It protects your personality, and humility breaks it down. It says, you're not the best. You're no better than anybody else. But you're not worse than anybody else either,
Yeah.
So you let your ego get the best of you, brother. You stop working with others, huh?
Yeah. Well, also, it was also the crowd I was around. We're all selling sneakers. We're all like in business. We're making good money, and
it's like
it was
that,
very
it's
competitive.
Like that, it's like that hype beast crowd. It's
Yeah.
all.
And we would
such LA culture too.
We had a couple chat rooms, and we would just flex our sales. Like, oh, my sale's better than your sale. Oh, I made 500 off this sneaker. Yeah, and it was just so competitive that it was just all ego. And we would have all these dinners, and they would also make drinking look sophisticated because they're making a lot of money. They're not getting drunk as fuck. They're not falling off the table.
Yeah.
You know, they're having a couple of drinks and we're talking about work and business.
Buying the best tequila, the best whiskey, bottle service at the clubs, making it look glamorous.
Yeah.
Glamorous.
And for me, it was just like, look at me. Like, I'm so successful. Like, I went back to school. I graduated. I was in master's at USC. Now I decided to take business. I'm killing the business. I'm making so much money. Why can't I have a fucking drink?
Yeah.
You know, I can have a drink at this point. You know, I deserve a drink of success.
Yeah, of
course. I need to celebrate.
Yeah.
You know, and those are the things that came into play.
Yeah.
But it also took a while. Like, I remember thinking about it for like a year before I actually took a drink.
Yeah.
You know, and it was very like small thoughts. It wasn't like obsessive thoughts, but it kept creeping up. And I feel like the last couple months, it was just the fear of doing it. You know, that was the only thing standing in my way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And towards those last couple months, how involved were you in the AA community? Were you still going to meetings those last couple months before you relapsed? Were you still hanging out with people in AA? Or had you completely disconnected?
Well, here's the thing. I kind of was going to meetings, but it was getting smaller and smaller, my participation in recovery. But I was also working part-time at a sober living.
Okay.
Until I even relapsed. So when I relapsed, I like texted the owner and I was like, thank you for the opportunity. You know, I'm going to have to go my separate ways. Yeah. So, but at that place, when I used to go to work, I would just take him to meetings a couple of days a week. Yeah. But I was kind of disconnected. I was on my phone all the time. Yeah. I was over it because I was working there for like 4 years at this point. Wow. You know?
Yeah, of course.
So I was still doing that on the side and doing sneakers full time, you know?
Yeah. And a lot of us think that, you know, working in recovery, whether it's at a treatment center or a sober living or an IOP or a PHP, we think that can become our program because we're working in it. That can become our program. But no, that's our work. That's what we do for monetary gain. That's what we do for financial success. That's what we do to gather resources and keep ourselves afloat. But that's not service. Service is altruistic. I always say, and it can be confused for service a lot working at those treatment centers because you are working with people that are newly in recovery. You are giving them advice, but service begins where convenience ends. That's what I always say. So if it's convenient for you, you're making money off of it, it's not service. If it's inconvenient for you and you're going out of your way and you're going to pick up a newcomer that lives across town, you're talking to them the whole car ride. You guys don't really jive together, but he's struggling and you got advice to tell him. You take him through the steps, you take him through the book, you take him to a meeting. That is service, you know? It's inconvenient. It's not, but it's keeping you sober, you know? And at the end of the day, when you drop him off after that meeting, you feel so much better because you know that you help somebody. And even if they don't get it, you know, like some of your sponsees didn't. They understand that you understand that you passed on your knowledge and you tried your best. And that's the great paradox of this program is that you have to give it away to keep it, right? We learn by teaching, you know? So when you stray away from that, when you stop being of service, when you stop taking people through the book, when you stop trying to help newcomers, you start to lose out on one of the essential tenets of this program, which is service. The whole house can come collapsing down if that's not working, you know? 100%. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what it was like, you know, when you went out? How fast did your life collapse? Take me into the depths. If you you know, I want to hear about it. I want to know.
You know, it was a slow process. Like I relapsed on the 4th of July, 2018. Yeah. I remember like it was yesterday, you know. And I remember before I even relapsed, like I told my mom I was going to drink. Yeah. Because I didn't want to keep any secrets from them. I know that they're not stupid, my parents. Yeah. They were going to find out anyway. Yeah. And at the time I was living under their roof. So I told them that, you know what, I worked the steps. I'm a different person than when I checked in the treatment. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm a whole different person. That was a bad time. I can handle it. And it took me a while. You know, I was drinking weekends, You know, it took me a couple months to even try weed and cocaine.
Yeah.
I was drinking for a good amount of time, just drinking. Mm-hmm. But I noticed that slowly I was starting to look forward to the weekends more.
Yeah.
You know, I would still work all day doing the sneakers, but then, you know, look forward to like going out, hitting the bars at night.
Yeah.
And it was very slow.
Yeah.
Like I was out for 4 years before I entered treatment again.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like something quick. I was still making good money, you know, with the sneakers, but slowly, you know, my parents were getting kind of frustrated. They were, you know, they noticed there was like differences in me. And
Were you still living with your parents at the time?
yeah, I was. And then after like 8 to 10 months,
Yeah.
I could tell my dad was getting on my case a lot. So I moved out.
Yeah.
I moved out, got a room in a house in Beverly Hills. I knew the landlord, and I lived there for another like 8-10 months.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did that just kind of like,
Get them off.
kind of get off of my back and have more freedom to do whatever I wanted to do.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I mean, and then I saw myself getting bad with the cocaine. And that was one drug that I wasn't really a fan of, you know, when I was using before.
Yeah.
Like obviously I did it, done it plenty of times, but I was way more into the downers, way more into, you know, Xanax and heroin.
Yeah.
That was my bread and butter at that time. But then this time I started becoming like a full-on cokehead.
Yeah.
You know, and I would drink a lot. I'd do a lot of coke. Xanax was always in the picture, you know, and yeah, I noticed that it progressed to something different because I was working so much that I kind of knew I can't do opiates and keep this up.
Yeah.
But I can do cocaine and keep this up.
Yeah.
But I noticed that like there would be a lot of sneaker events and my friends would call me and be like, Reza, where the fuck are you?
Yeah.
You know, like this is a huge release. There's a lot of money to be made. And I'll be sleeping over, you know, the chick I was seeing at the time house and just doing coke and just hanging out with her and, you know, having sex, whatnot.
Yeah, 100%.
So my priorities were kind of getting mixed up. And then COVID hit, you know, and the EDD money was good. And I was still making a lot with sneakers and the EDD money was like strictly for drugs.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, you know, we couldn't go out.
People were spending those stimulus checks on the sneakers.
It was a great
you know?
time. It was a great time. The sneakers were selling at an all-time high. I was getting the EDD money.
Yeah, get that stimmy check on the
it was
new Pandas or whatever sneaker was dropping at the time.
No, Pandas weren't really popping at that time. I think it was the year after where Pandas started.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But it was a great time.
Yeah.
It was a great fucking time.
Yeah.
And, I was like, I could do this forever. This quarantine thing, you know? And, but I, you know, it was weird because like I was so observant, you know, like I could tell shit was getting bad, but I was like, you know what? I can't go back to treatment.
Yeah.
So I would be like, let me cut back a bit.
Yeah.
You know, I'm doing too much coke.
Yeah.
Let me cut back. I don't want to end up in treatment. God forbid I end up in treatment.
Yeah.
You know, because I always tell myself never again.
Yeah.
I'm never going back to fucking treatment. You know, no matter what.
No. Yeah.
So eventually, you know, this is over a course of years, right?
Yeah.
I end up moving back home.
Yeah.
After the spot in Beverly Hills. I wasn't getting along with all the roommates. There was too many roommates. So I moved back home and at one point I had enough. And I was like, you know what? I'm not doing anything. I'm just going to smoke weed.
Yeah.
You know, I can't go back to treatment. I saw myself slipping back into treatment. You know, my parents are getting sick of me. So then I started smoking like 7 grams of weed a day, just that. But I was getting the real expensive shit. I was going to the dispensaries and, you know, there's a $40 pre-roll, infused. I'm going to get that. The Jeters, all the expensive pre-rolls. And 7 grams of that, it's not a joke. Like this is like a different level of weed, all concentrate. And, you know, I'm from California.
Yeah.
So I know our weed's the best, but this is some other shit.
Yeah, the advancement, the scientific advancements that they've come out on synthesizing and concentrating the marijuana and THC nowadays is insane. It's just so concentrated. It makes a lot of people who smoke weed fall into schizophrenic breaks that are smoking this weed. You know, I've seen it a lot of times with the clients that have come through my doors. And this stuff is like, the thing with weed is that like society paints it as so innocuous. It's healing. It's a medicine. It's a plant of the earth, you know, but is it a plant of the earth when it's like being synthesized in a lab and chemically manipulated to extract the THC and give you 100% THC levels that are just like, no, it's not a plant at that point, you know? It's just like, you know, saying that heroin is a plant because it came from the poppy seed, you know? Or cocaine is a plant because it's like, you know, because it came from the coca leaf. Yeah. But it has to be synthesized and go through so much extraction to get to that point. And that's what we're seeing with these like THC pens that all the everybody's using. The flower is not even around anymore. It's just and even the flower itself, the way that they're crossbreeding it is just becoming so potent, and it's so chemically addictive and physically addictive in your brain and in your body that people are, you know, having a hard time stopping and detoxing. I know one of the hardest drugs I had trouble quitting was marijuana, and just because it was painted by society as this innocuous drug. It's like everyone's doing it. It's in culture. It's in the, you know, the raps, the songs, whatever. It's
spirituality.
Even spirituality can be tied to it, you know, which is very dangerous in and of itself. But anyway, so that was what, you know, so you started doing all this weed and you're like, this is going to be the limit of what I do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But it all goes bad.
All goes bad.
It's
you got to push the envelope. You keep pushing the envelope. You got to get to where you want to go.
In a way, it's like God just wanted me to be back in the program. Like looking back at it, like the way things planned out, it was like I needed to get sober. Yeah. You know, no plan of mine to like limit what I'm doing was going to prevent me from going back into treatment. And like I said, eventually I got into a full-blown psychosis and I was unaware of it. Yeah. You know, I was totally unaware of it. I remember certain things. I remember one day, like, I called my parents and I thought there was a bomb in my car. Wow. Because my car couldn't turn on. Wow. And it just, I don't know why. I just tried it one time and I just started tripping. Yeah. And then I left my car, like, by Fairfax, and I somehow got home and I was convinced there was a bomb planted in my car. Wow. You know, and then things just got worse. I was still smoking and I just was getting into a worse psychosis. Yeah. And I was getting
paranoid. Was just off weed.
That was just off weed.
Off weed.
But weed isn't weed anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
It's chemical.
Exactly. You know? It's a chemical compound at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it sucked, dude. Like, ended up getting kicked out of my house because I was just acting crazy. Yeah. You know? I remember one time, me and my dad, I was tripping out on my dad. I was paranoid, you know. Mm-hmm. I did things I wasn't supposed to do, you know, and I eventually got kicked out of the house and was homeless, and I stayed in a hotel, and the next thing you know, I wake up and I'm in San Pedro by the beach. Okay. With no money, no phone's gone, nothing.
That's insane.
Yeah. And I was missing for 17 days. People thought I was dead. Mm-hmm. Like, my friends were looking for me, my parents were looking for me. People that I just recently got into contact with that I haven't heard from were like, dude, we were fucking worried about you. Yeah. Like, a lot of people were just driving places and they couldn't find me. And, you know, somehow I actually did well homeless because I was still in a psychosis. Yeah. And, but it took me 17 days to kind of get my way back to the city.
Yeah. Well, it just goes to show that, you know, like, we are not an island. As much as we like to think that, like, we are only hurting ourselves, there are so many people that love us, depend upon us, and want us to do well, and maybe they're not playing an active role in your daily life. They're still worried about you, and they still love you. And all of our actions hurt the people around us, whether they're our family, our friends, our girlfriends, wives, or the people we work with. All of your actions have an effect on other people. And that's what I think was really hard for me to understand as an addict and alcoholic, because I was always the victim, right? I was always playing the role of the victim, like, oh, this happened to me. You know, this guy just ran into my car, or this person just, like, you know, they fired me for like wrongful reasons, you know, or I failed this class because of a bad teacher. I was always the victim of circumstance, you know. But when I look at it, I play an active role in each one of those downfalls. It was my doing that put me in that situation, you know?
Yeah. I agree. I mean, we play the victim, and we're just so selfish that we don't know what's going on.
100%. So you made your way back to the city.
Yeah.
You're in the city now. After being homeless, where'd you go? Did you go back to treatment at that point?
Well, here's what happened. So I went to I got into Fairfax somehow through the bus.
Yeah.
And I went to the sneaker store I do business with.
Yeah.
My friends work there, and they were like, "Holy fuck, Reza, you're alive. You need to call your family. They think you're dead."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh shit, like this is a lot to deal with."
Yeah.
And then within like 15, 20 minutes, like 5 of my friends drove there immediately.
Yeah.
And one of them was like, "You need to sleep in treatment tonight.
Yeah.
Your parents aren't going to let you back in." And I kind of wanted to be homeless still. I was like, no, like I'm doing fine. Like I'll just, do this homeless thing.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Dude, you're out of your mind. You smell like shit. Just one night, just sleep in treatment one night."
You're like, I haven't showered in 17 days.
Yeah.
I'm good, man.
But
good.
I look good for homeless. I was like stealing clothes. I had a nice hat on, that I stole.
Yeah.
But he drove me to treatment that night.
Okay.
Yeah.
He drove you. So that was.
And I knew it wasn't going to be one night. I knew. I was like, okay, we're back in this thing.
Yeah.
Fucking back in treatment,
So how long were you in treatment for?
Dude, on and off, like since February of last year, I was in treatment. I took a 1 month off to go to Iran because after a month of treatment initially, I like needed to get out of treatment. Mm-hmm. And I knew my parents were going to like take anything. So I told my mom, like, listen, I just need to be in Iran. I need to be around family. I feel lonely. Just whatever I could to get the fuck out of treatment. So I spent a month in Iran in between that, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
It was fucking awful.
100%. Yeah.
And part of me, I think, wanted to go there to try to get high there.
You can't really get drugs in Iran, huh?
Well, I got drunk a couple of times, but my extended relatives kind of knew what was up at this point too.
Yeah.
So they were like we were around alcohol, but my uncle was like, "Nah, I'm not drinking in front of you. You're not drinking."
Is alcohol easy to procure in Iran? I know it's a Muslim country.
A lot of people make their own alcohol.
Okay.
Because people sell it. And they don't trust the alcohol coming in because some people get blind from it. It's like, you know what I mean? So people,
it's a Muslim country, and and it's a sin. Is that right?
Well,
is that the right name?
You're not supposed to drink.
You're just not supposed to drink.
Yeah.
It's, according to the Quran, you're just not supposed to drink.
But you know how it is. Even when the prohibition in America, they got alcohol here. The same thing over there. They get alcohol overseas, or a lot of people just make their own alcohol.
Yeah.
Just so they know where it's coming from.
When you were drinking alcohol over there, you were putting yourself in harm's way because if you got caught, you'd be thrown in prison.
Yeah, but people there are so professional that we do everything inside.
Yeah.
No one's doing anything outside.
Yeah.
It's all inside closed doors.
Yeah.
But I remember, I drank there twice, and I smoked weed one time. And I was with my second cousin, and he was chill. He likes to party.
Yeah.
And I remember smoking weed there, and I was kind of really paranoid. I didn't go to a psychosis, but I was like tripping.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was in a different country too. I was tripping. I was super
100%,
paranoid.
100%.
Yeah.
It just goes back to the fact that like when we pull geographicals, it's not going to work because wherever you go, there you are. It's what's within you that's causing you to be the addict. It's not what's outside of you that's causing you to be an addict. Yes, a lot of the times changing your scenery, changing your environment so you're not constantly around drugs. Like, if you're in the trap house or if you in your community, you know where to get drugs. It's good to change your environment for a temporary time, going to treatment, going to sober living, build that foundation. So when you go back in that environment, you're better equipped to say no. We recoil from it like a hot flame. So anyways, you were in Iran and you were smoking, you got paranoid. Then what happened? You came back.
Yeah. All that happened like the first week of Iran. I was still there for 3 more weeks.
Okay.
And it was so miserable because I was still in a psychosis like the first month in treatment. So by the time I get to Iran, I'm fully off the psychosis and my brain is fried.
Wow.
Like I'm like a whole different person. I'm not the person I used to be. Mm-hmm. And my family was there too to witness it. And they're like, "What's wrong with you?" Because I didn't want to do anything.
Yeah.
I was just laying in bed watching TV.
Very
unsocial, socially withdrawn.
Yeah.
Family members wanted to see me. I didn't want to do anything to do with it. So they were really worried. And it was just, the whole thing was just a disaster.
Yeah.
And I came back into treatment and it was a struggle.
Okay.
Like my mental health was so bad. And I thought that I was never going to revert back to my old self.
Okay.
I thought that this was like the post psychosis. This
Yeah.
is how it's going to be. And
that's
I
scary.
feel like no one could understand me. No one understood what I went through because my parents were just like, Reza, you had 5 years before. Just get it together.
Yeah.
Just fucking get it together. You know what the fuck to do?
It's not that simple.
It's not simple.
simple at all. It's not
And
that
I didn't
simple.
see any hope. I wanted to die, and I relapsed a lot. And in my relapses, I did my share of fentanyl. Overdosed twice.
Wow. What was that like? What did that feel like when you overdosed? So that is something that's happening a lot. I want to touch base on that with somebody that has firsthand perspective. What is that like? Overdosing, when you're about to overdose, what are you thinking? You blacked out. What is that like?
Well, here's the sad part. I was so miserable that I wanted to overdose and die.
Okay.
So when they woke me up, I was like, fuck.
That's not the first time I've heard that.
Yeah, it's like,
Not the
fuck.
first. I hear that a lot, actually.
Why didn't you let me go?
Yeah.
But obviously, like the physical aspect of it, they give you the Narcan, and it's terrible. You're freezing to death.
Yeah.
You puke after. You just
Yeah.
physically feel like shit.
Yeah.
And the first time I overdosed, I was only in like 10 hours.
But what was it like before? Like when you take that hit of fentanyl and you're like nodding out into that
The
overdose,
first time
what's that like?
I overdosed,
What's that feel
it was
like?
on heroin, but it was
Okay.
laced.
Yeah.
And
The fentanyl.
I didn't want to do fentanyl, not because of like what it was. I just like heroin. I like the taste of heroin.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with heroin.
Yeah.
And it was a pain in the ass to even get it.
Yeah.
Because that's the only
Fentanyl's
thing
taking over.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as heroin anymore.
Yeah.
Everything is fentanyl.
And I remember my boy was like, Reza, you're giving me a fucking hard time. It's gonna take me like a week or two to get fucking heroin.
Yeah.
And I said, I need heroin.
Yeah.
So the first time it was laced.
Yeah.
So I wasn't expecting to overdose.
Okay.
Because you know what? I smoke heroin.
Yeah.
I've been smoking it for years in my 20s, and I never overdose.
But physically, what did that feel like to drop into that overdose, knowing that to stop breathing?
Well, you don't feel it.
You don't feel it.
You don't have any memory of it.
You don't have any memory.
I just remember waking
Nothing
up
at
with
all.
Narcan and the paramedics.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Jesus.
Yeah.
It's
always
insane.
like that.
There, 1 second you're here, 1 second you're not.
Nope. Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
It just happens that fast.
But God always made me overdose in front of people.
Okay.
So, it was like he wanted me here. I have a purpose in this world.
Beautiful.
He didn't want me to go.
It's not beautiful that you overdose, but it's beautiful that you see God in everything.
Yeah.
You see God play a part in every part of your
because the
life.
times like I did it by myself, I would never overdose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's scary. It's super scary.
Yeah.
So you overdosed a couple times. When did you realize that you have to start taking this thing seriously? That this thing is no longer a joke.
That's the sickening part is when your mental health is really bad and you're an alcoholic.
Yeah.
That's a deadly combination because you're so self-centered. You're so stuck in self-centered fear that you don't give a fuck about anyone else. You're just like kind of having intrusive thoughts about your misery.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, like my parents, like they're tripping. They're scared out of their mind. My sponsor's getting tired of me relapsing. But all I could think about is why can't I be like the old Reza? Like this psychosis ruined me. Fuck this psychosis. Why did God do this to me? Like what did I do to God? Played the victim, felt pathetic, all of that. But it was all self-centered fear and just selfishness, and just the combination was just deadly.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And what was the realization when you made the call to Anthony that it was going to be this time? This is the time where I'm going to take my sobriety seriously, because this is the longest amount of time that you've had since that 5-year run.
Yep.
So what went through your mind when divine intervention is what I like to call it. What was that mindset
Well,
like?
here's the thing. Like, even when I called Anthony, I still had no hope.
Yeah.
I was just like, again, we're going to do this again.
Yeah.
I'm going to just do like maybe 2-3 weeks, try to bide as much time. And then I'm going to end up changing the way I want to feel because I feel like so miserable.
Yeah.
So, but the one thing that was different, obviously, was my money was tapped out.
Yeah.
So I had like 15, 20K.
Okay.
It was all gone from all the hotels and the drugs and whatever else. So, but I had no hope still.
Yeah.
I had no fucking hope.
Yeah.
But one thing that also checked in with me was my sponsor, who was riding with me the whole time.
Yeah.
Told me, listen,
he's a good guy. I've
great guy.
talked
Great.
to your
I love
sponsor.
that. I love him to death.
Really stand up dude.
He told me, like, this is it. You relapse one more time, I'm fucking done with you.
Yeah.
And I had this moment where I just felt pathetic. I'm like, damn, if everyone's done with me, so if my sponsor's done with me, it's all bad.
Yeah.
So that took into play. But like I said, none of that's enough.
Yeah.
None of that is enough.
Nothing.
And I still felt like shit the first 3 weeks I was here. But one thing that helped me a lot in that time was Warner Park.
Yeah.
You know, I finally went to an IOP that really had amazing groups, took this shit seriously.
Yeah.
Didn't feel like it was a chore going into it. And there was book studies.
Yeah.
There was a book study group that really fucking helped me.
Yeah. The 12-step big book.
And I didn't want to be there when I first came in. I didn't want anything to do with it, but I just stuck in it because something in me was just tired.
Yeah.
You know, I remember like I'll talk to my friends in the sneaker game that are like good friends, really good friends that were, you know, constantly looking for me when I was missing. Mm-hmm. And I remember having a phone conversation that kind of stuck to me. And he was like, dude, Reza, it's been 16 months. What are you doing in detox?
Yeah.
Like, when are you going to get out of there?
Yeah.
And at the time I was so miserable. I was like, I didn't care. I felt so bad for myself. I was like, fuck, you know, but it kind of stuck out to me. And it was just like, when am I going to get back to like reality? I'm institutionalized. Like, this is scary.
Yeah.
You know, med call, you know, all this was just reality. Like, I felt like I was going to be suicidal forever.
It's scary being institutionalized because people make the decisions for you. Yeah. You know, when you get institutionalized, you're no longer in control. It's the other people are making decisions for your life because you can't make them for yourself. Because when you do make those decisions for your life, you end up overdosing and dying. You know, it's very scary. It's, you know, and nobody wants to be in a place where they're institutionalized. They want to get that power back, you know, but how do you get the power back? You have to admit that you're powerless. Another great paradox of this program is that in order to take back power, you have to admit you're powerless over certain things, which is the basis of the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, you know? But so you came into treatment and then you came to our house.
Yeah.
And what set our house a little bit different? What made our house a little different than the other places you've been?
The first thing that I noticed was at the time I checked in, we only had 4 clients. I was the 4th client.
Yeah.
So that peace of mind, I'm a private person. Mm-hmm. Like, I could be very social, but I like my own space.
Yeah.
And I'm used to being in sober livings with like 15, 16 people, 10 people in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And it was too much for me.
It could be crowded. It could be
very
packed,
crowded.
You know?
So I was able to just be able to navigate on my terms.
Yeah.
You know, that helped me a lot. But also you and Brian, like, you guys really gave a fuck.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying most sober living owners don't give a fuck, but you guys were very active and I felt the love. Yeah. You know, I felt like you guys genuinely cared about my well-being.
Of course, you know. Well, we're so happy that we were able to play an active role in your recovery. We're so happy that you came and you joined our community here. You were one of the founding guys that helped us build up the community. Because Brian and I, we started the house, but it's you guys in the house that you guys create the culture. You guys create the community. It's not us. We're not here all the time. You guys are. So it's you guys set the tone for the new guys that come through the door. You know, and you're a huge leader in that, and we really appreciate you for that. We're really thankful that you came into our house, you know. But I think that's all the time we got today, Reza. Okay. Thanks for coming on the podcast, man. And I'm excited to see where you go. I'm excited to see the continued
I'm really grateful
growth.
to be in this house, and I'm just honored for the future. And I'm just, like I said, I'm blessed to have another opportunity at life.
Yeah, this is just the beginning, man. Yeah, this is just the beginning.
Glad you guys had me.
You're gonna help so many people. You're gonna help so many people. All right, brother.
All right.
Wow. Reza has an intense story.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
Everything he's been through. And that was just post his 5 years, you know, clean.
Yeah.
That wasn't even before he got clean the first time.
And I think too, you know, it's so unique, the experience that Reza had within his schizophrenic or psychotic episode under cannabis, because that is a problem that just isn't talked about enough.
No.
You know, and the literature is really clear, especially for young people, the statistics jump way up. If you're using cannabis, between 13 to 20, et cetera, the chances are that you're going to have a schizophrenic break if you're predisposed to it are way, way higher. So I'm glad we got an opportunity to sort of, share that side of people's experiences with cannabis.
100%, because again, society and the media and everything paints cannabis as this, harmless plant.
It's a weed.
It's a weed.
It's a weed. There's toxins in it. It's literally a weed
that grows out of the ground, but they don't, they don't understand how dangerous a compound could be if it's, when it's abused like that.
Yeah, we heard all about it. So awesome. Awesome. Yeah, big thanks to Reza.
Yeah.
Appreciate all our listeners tuning in, and looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, thank you guys. Have a good one.